There now follows a party political gangster rap on behalf of the UK Independence Party. Hello, I'm Nigel Farage, also known as Nigel Farage, Nigel Farage. So step back, Nicki Minaj, cause I'm a wicked politician at large, with a vision of the Britain with no immigrant barges barging in, causing arguments and argy-bargy. The Falklands is ours, we barred it from the Argies. Don't mess with the UK Independence Party, cause we've a tendency to get nasty. Each time I gave a splendid speech, we gained momentum, speed, Faraging with a vengeance. We are in the ascendancy, a swing of the pendulum, and we will gain a bench of seats. Unrepentantly pro-independency, my ideal ending seemed a never-ending referendum on foreign bureaucrats and where the heck we're gonna send them. Next on the agenda, bloody hell, I can't remember. I'm too busy thinking of becoming an honourable member. I'm that friendly MEP, aiming for an MBE. The Lib Dems and the BNP, they envy me. They know what I'm gonna be, so they're poking fun at me. I've no fear, bring your smear, sling your mud at me. But bugger bringing in a single currency. What's the problem with the monetary system we've got currently? Great Britain is an excellent island, significantly better than Ireland. I learn not to be outnumbered by a bunch of Scots, cause they've a tendency to pile in and get violent. But I'm a man of great class, make you look a straight ass. I carry on my campaign straight after a plane crash. Tell these champagne socialists I'm here to gate crash. I'm Moet to your baby shaman, I can't wait to break glass. I dedicate this ungodly tune to an MEP gone too soon in memory of Godfrey Bloom. Rest in peace, Godfrey. What? I know he's not actually dead, but it's better than saying he was forced to leave for calling a group of women at the conference a bunch of sluts. Anyway, I digress. The point of the message that I'm trying to convey today is that voting for UKIP would be a splendid idea. The fighting bull strikes again. God save the Queen. Penelope Keith, Dennis the Menace, Roger the Dodger, Tintin. What? Tintin's Belgian? Why wasn't I informed of this? Why did nobody tell me that Tintin is Belgian? Get his literature out of my office now!
Damn bull. Doug will be.
New Labour alienated and made him marginalised. Pull hard on the ties, wouldn't be part of the lies. Man.
Questions. We'll turn now to First Minister's questions. Question number 1 from Jackson Carlow.
Thank you. Can I ask the First Minister, which plan delivers public spending in real terms over the coming years higher, the UK Government's budget plan or the SNP's Growth Commission?
First Minister.
Well, let me be very clear that as a result of the budget on Monday, the UK Government budget, the budget of the Scottish Government will be cut in real terms by almost £2 billion between the Tories coming to office in 2010 and the end of this decade, highlighting that austerity under the Tories is far from over. They continue to deliver tax cuts for the richest and just cuts for everybody else. By contrast, the Growth Commission recommends real terms increases in spending to protect our vital public services.
Jackson Carlow.
Well, if that's austerity, the First Minister is going to have to think of a new word to describe life under her miserable plans, because that's quite something. And whatever else that was, it wasn't an answer to the simple question I asked. On Sunday, Derek Mackay swaggered round the TV studio saying, "Show me the money." Well, on Monday, the Chancellor did. And what the First Minister won't admit is that the UK budget has now set a course for public spending to increase within the UK at 1.4% a year in real terms up to 2023-24, whereas the SNP's Growth Commission, their evangelical Bible of economic misery, forecast public spending in an independent Scotland to increase by just 0.5%. First Minister, those are the facts. So I ask you again, which plan proposes to increase spending by more in Scotland? The UK Government's bold proposals or the SNP's miserable Growth Commission?
First Minister.
Independence and control of our own resources, we can ensure real terms increase in public spending. That is the prize of independence. But let's go back to the budget and the reality of the UK Government Tory budget announced on Monday. That will result in cuts to the Scottish Government budget of £2 billion over the decade that the Tories have been in power. Most of the consequentials in next year, of course, are earmarked for the National Health Service. When that is taken out, and we will pass them on to the National Health Service, I should say, as an aside, the Tories have even managed to short changes on that. We were meant to get £600 million in consequentials next year. We're only seeing £550 million of that delivered. And if that shortfall continues over the planning period, that will see the Tories shortchange the Scottish people to the tune of more than £250 million. That is absolutely shameful. But, you know, if Jackson Carlaw doesn't want to take my word for it, perhaps he can listen to the think tanks, and the experts have all had their say on the budget over the last few days. The Resolution Foundation is not the end of austerity. Existing promises of extra spending in some areas mean the Chancellor's numbers imply ongoing cuts in other day-to-day public services. So we know what the Tories stand for. The mask has well and truly slipped. It slipped before we even got to Halloween this year. Tax cuts for the wealthiest and cuts for everybody else. That's the reality of the Tories, and this government stands for something very different indeed.
Jackson Carlaw.
How miserably predictable. Here's the reality. The Scottish Government will receive an extra £500 million more in real terms next year. That's what the independent Scottish parliamentary researcher Spice have declared. And yet the SNP are so focused on finding the cloud in every silver lining, it can't even bring itself to welcome a single penny of that money, let alone £500 million of it. Worse still, the Finance Secretary has also indicated that he will refuse to pass on tax cuts which will benefit middle-income families elsewhere in the UK. Will the First Minister give any hope of tax relief to people like senior teachers, nurses and police officers who, without it, face paying a bill of £1,000 extra in income tax compared to those doing exactly the same job elsewhere in the UK? Will she?
First Minister.
However Jackson Carlaw tries to spin it, the reality is cuts to this government's budget as a result of decisions taken by the Tory Chancellor. I've got the figures here. £2 billion over the decade is the real terms cut in the budget of this government. That amounts to almost 7% in real terms. The Tories should be utterly ashamed of that. But let me turn to tax. And, you know, we are, of course, seeing the true colours of the Tories really highlighted today. When we set our budget on the 12th of December, the decisions we take will be driven by our determination to protect our National Health Service and our other public services, to tackle poverty and low pay, and ensure that those who earn the most in our society make a fair and reasonable contribution to our public services. It will be a balanced, progressive and fair budget, and it will stand in stark contrast to the one that we saw on Monday. But let me look at tax in more detail. And I am really surprised that Jackson Carlaw is prepared to defend the reality of this. Again, let me cite the Resolution Foundation. So these are not Scottish Government figures. 84% of the benefit from the Tory tax cut for the richest goes to the top half of the income spectrum. 37% of that goes to the top 10% of income earners. And then, looking ahead, and I'm quoting here the Resolution Foundation, the overall impact of tax and benefit policies put in place by the Tory government since 2015 will, on average, make richer households better off by £390 a year and the poorest fifth of households £400 a year worse off. Shameful. That is absolutely damning and shameful. And I'd be really interested to hear if Jackson Carlaw is prepared to stand up and defend that.
Jackson Carlaw.
Well, I'll tell you something. Audit Scotland's not very impressed with your efforts to protect the NHS because they think its current forecast is completely unsustainable. And what we get from the First Minister really is the usual basket of clichés. This was a budget which froze fuel duty, froze fuel duty and delivered a tax cut of £132 to the record number of Scots in work. It delivered a freeze on the duty on whisky, welcomed by the industry. Help for the oil and gas sector, welcomed by those in it. More than £500 million for Scotland's NHS. Help for our high streets, investment in our roads. And the SNP response? An all too predictable whinge. How tired, lacklustre and miserable. They wanted a freeze in whisky duty, they got it. They wanted support for oil and gas, they got it. They wanted to see the money, they got £950 million worth of it. If ever Scotland wanted evidence that this is a grudge and grievance government led by a grudge and grievance First Minister, this was it. Why can't she for once, just once, First Minister, welcome it?
First Minister.
Well, isn't it interesting, and isn't it very, very illuminating, that when I quoted the Resolution Foundation about how the Tories are cutting tax for the richest in our society while continuing to punish the poor, and asked Jackson Carlaw to have a go at defending that, he just changed the subject. I think lots of people will have listened to Jackson Carlaw today and realised that he is completely unable to defend the policies of his own party at Westminster. Let's turn back to the NHS and tax. Firstly, let us not forget, of course, that as a result of our budget decisions last year, 55% of taxpayers in Scotland right now pay less tax than counterparts across the UK because of our new starter rate, not helping those at the top, helping those at the bottom of the income scale. That's a progressive change. And when it comes to the NHS, for weeks now, the Tories have been challenging the Scottish Government to say what we're going to do with the £600 million of consequentials that we were going to get in this budget for the health service. Now, we will pass on every penny of consequentials for the health service to the health service. But interestingly, it's not £600 million that's been delivered. It's only 550, and that will cost Scottish people more than £250 million over the period. But my final point, presiding officer, and the Tories might want to listen to this, because that figure of £550 million has another significance, does it not? Because that's also the figure that would have been taken out of the Scottish budget if we'd followed Tory calls to cut tax for the richest in this financial year. That would have been the equivalent of taking 13,000 nurses out of our health service. So this government stands for public services. It stands for helping the poorest in our society. It stands for fairness and progressive principles. And what we've seen today is that the Tories stand for tax cuts for the rich and just cuts for everybody else. And Jackson Carlaw can't even try to defend it. Utterly shameful.
That attempt by the EU to level the playing fields by those convergence uplift monies, the fact that that money was really available to the UK largely on the back of the conditions in Scotland, and yet those monies weren't given to Scottish farmers, doesn't that suggest we're right to be cautious of the UK making such decisions on Scotland's behalf in the future? I mean, we certainly didn't do well by that one, did we?
Well, as I said, it was a complex issue because the land type is different.
Really that complex, I would suggest. I mean, we've got a far higher proportion of LFAs in Scotland. As I understand it, that's a big reason why we got that convergence uplift money from Europe in the first place.
It was, but the overall UK budget went down. So it's not the case that anybody else benefited from that. The total UK allocation in Pillar 1 went down in the last EU budget round. So there was effectively a levelling off there, but nobody had a rise. It's not like anybody else had an increase here. But look, that's all from 5 years ago now. We are in a very new world.
£160 million.
We're in a very new world where we are leaving the European Union.
Chunk of money.
Where we want to have a forward-facing review. That's why Michael Gove has been really clear that he wanted to get this review in place so that we can actually address this grievance, and I know we've heard a lot from the NFU Scotland have been making the running on this. Many of our colleagues have been pushing very hard for this, and that is why we are going to have this review to ensure that we can address any of these issues of unfairness.
So if the review suggests that Scotland has been hard done by as a result of that decision, will we get the money back?
This is all about forward-facing. So when money's been spent, it's spent. So this is about what we do after 2020.
So no money back for Scotland?
Even
if it's decided that that is actually the case?
This is a forward... decision? No, this is a forward-looking review about how we fund...
We are barrelling towards an incoherent Brexit that is going to leave us trapped in a subordinate relationship to the EU, with no say over the rules that will govern huge swathes of our economy. This is completely unacceptable and unsustainable for a proud democracy such as our own. In fact, so great is the gulf now between what was promised in the referendum campaign and what is now on offer in the Prime Minister's proposed deal that I have had no choice but to submit my resignation to the Prime Minister this afternoon. I think it is imperative that we now go back to the people and check that they are content to proceed on this extraordinary basis. We will be, instead of in Europe but not run by Europe, we will be out of Europe and yet wholly subject to European rules.
I mean, time is going to force her hand. She will have to put something to Parliament. The deadline is thought to be January the 20th. The big problem that she faces is that she can try and soften everything and bring everyone together with some fudge. But the longer the period of time between striking the deal and having the parliamentary vote, the more likely people are going to scrutinise this deal and it might all go wrong. So I think she's probably going to want to have the parliamentary vote and the deal being struck very close together.
The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, will also meet with President Trump in Paris. Macron's calling for a new European army, pan-European army, to defend against Russia, China and America. Fox News contributor Nigel Farage joins us now. What? Are you kidding me? Macron wants a European army, maybe to defend against us? Seriously?
Yeah, he is a Euro fanatic. I've been warning for 20 years. They wanted to build a European army. They actually want some of these leaders to destroy NATO, and they've always seen America as the enemy because America is bigger and richer and stronger, and they're jealous. But for Macron to do it just a few days before President Trump goes to commemorate the centenary of the end of the Great War, the First World War, I think was absolutely crass in the extreme. Maybe you can see now why his poll ratings are collapsing in France.
What are the odds of the Europeans actually getting together and organising a European army?
Well, they are stated very clearly to want to do it by 2025. They are still expansionist. They want to remove any member state's ability to veto foreign policy decisions like going to war. I think they will get their European army, but I think in terms of size, it'll be absolutely puny. And the byproduct of this will be that NATO will not continue to be operational in Europe. One of the main reasons I fought for Brexit was against this kind of thing. I think Europe is safer with America and NATO than it is with a bunch of bureaucrats and pygmies, frankly, like Macron, running the military.
Well, you don't care for the French president, do you?
No, I don't. And I love France, love the French people, but this guy is stuck with an out-of-date ideology. He wants to build a United States of Europe, and you cannot do that when people have different languages and countries have different histories. It's the wrong approach. I want a Europe of sovereign states that are friends with each other, not one run by bully boys like him.
And free trade within that group of sovereign states. Is there something wrong with that?
Of course. What is wrong with that? We can have free trade, reciprocity, students. We can deal with cross-border problems like people trafficking, pollution. We don't need a European government, a European Parliament and a European court to do any of those things.
Music to my ears, Mr Farage. Come and tell us that song again whenever you like. Nigel,
Okay,
you're all
thank
right.
you.
See you soon, son. Thanks very much.
The Battle of the Thames, more naughty than nautical perhaps, an amazing armada, 30 or so fishing boats sailing up to Westminster, led by UKIP leader Nigel Farage. Brexit, they said, would save Britain's fishing industry. But Remain had been tipped off, outswept a counterforce, little boats and large, under Admiral Sir Bob Geldof, with this broadside.
Nigel, you're a fraud. Britain makes more money than any other country in Europe from fishing. Britain has the second largest quota for fish in Europe after Denmark. 3. Britain has the third largest landings. You're a fraud, Nigel. Go back down the river, because you're up one without a canoe.
To the dismay of Remain colleagues, Geldof's signals were somewhat crude. This, I'm told, is semaphore for anchor. But this UKIP MEP gave as good as they got.
Millionaires just love it in the EU. What about working seamen? Not one sailor on your boat.
So what do you think of Bob Geldof calling you a fraud?
Absolutely disgusting to think. He can call me what he likes, but to see him here effectively mocking, you know, these men that have come from all over the British Isles.
Mocking your policy.
Well, he doesn't understand it, does he? He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me explain. The Common Fisheries Policy is based on equal access to a common resource, which means, given that we've got the greatest fish stocks within the European Union by a long way, we have to share what is rightfully ours with the rest of the EU.
Then fishermen from a boat called Wayward Lad boarded the Geldof boat with some help from Sir Bob.
You're all wrong, and I will stand on this boat and I'll say you are wrong and you are wrong and you're wrong and you're wrong. Not one of you lot look like you've come out of Southend-on-Sea. None of you have come from Essex. Maybe you, sir, or you're London, yeah? But that is it. We played down there so many times. That Dr. Fielder. You and you're London through and through. I'm Irish.
The crowd on the UKIP boat sent referendum victory. Amid the carnival, one friend of Nigel Farage even told us the UKIP leader's been approached by the Boris Johnson camp about serving in a Johnson government. Feelers have been put up about you serving in a Boris Johnson government.
Really? You know more than I do.
Would you do that?
You know more than I do.
Would you be willing to serve in a Boris Johnson government? The idea is that you would take a place in the House of Lords for one of your friends?
This sounds like Fantasyland stuff.
But if Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, which he may well be come this autumn, he came along and offered you a job, you'd have to think about it, wouldn't you?
I will think about nothing beyond what happens next Thursday.
You're not turning down this idea of serving in a Boris
because
Johnson
you're coming
government.
up with...
Well, it's been mentioned to me by one of your...
Well, it hasn't to me.
Politics seems to be shifting, for they ended with Farage and Labour MP Kate Hoey in Titanic pose. Only this ship's not sinking. Not yet, at least.
Good day, chums. Since I am on vacation, I am unable to host today's episode. But thankfully, I have secured a special guest host. Let's see who it is.
And I don't want to be rude, but you know, really, you have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy's not popular with you lot. You appear to have a loathing for the very concept of the existence of nation-states. Perhaps that's because you come from Belgium, which of course is pretty much a non-country.
Wow. You can't barrage the Farage.
I think that I think that Britain will separate from the EU. I think maybe it's time, especially in light of what's happened with the craziness that's going on with the migration, with people pouring in all over the place. I think that Britain will end up separating from the EU.
Ich wünsche mir, das habe ich oft gesagt und das wiederhole ich heute noch einmal, dass natürlich Großbritannien in der EU verbleibt, aber es ist eine Entscheidung der Bürgerinnen und
Well, lads, it's not looking good. This might be the end of the Anglo. Has the Farage finally been barraged?
Faisal, we've now reached the point where Sky News is in a position to call this election. And Sky News is projecting that the UK has voted out. The UK electorate has taken the historic decision to withdraw from the European Union after more than 40 years of membership. The expert working out that projection is Professor Mike.
Holy shit. Great Britain liberated herself on the one day that Mr. Trump was in the country. Is this a sign?
I may represent the smallest group in this Parliament, Mr. Schultz, but I can tell you that it's a group whose ideas and whose views are now being echoed by a growing number of citizens right across this continent. I'm sure you'd agree, the opinion polls show it's kind of 50-50 whether people think this EU is a good thing or a bad thing.
The sun has risen on an independent United Kingdom. And just look at it, even the weather's improved.
What I like is that I love to see people take their country back. And that's really what's happening in the United States, and I think you see that, and that's what's happening in many other places in the world. They're tired of it. They want to take their countries back.
We have fought against the multinationals, we fought against the big merchant banks, we fought against big politics, we fought against lies, corruption and deceit, and today, honesty, decency and belief in nation, I think now is going to win.
We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism. The nation state remains the true foundation for happiness and harmony.
We will have done it without having to fight, without a single bullet being fired. And by people in the Labour Party and the Conservative Party and UKIP and of no party who've taken part in this campaign. And we'll have done it not just for ourselves, we'll have done it for the whole of Europe. I hope this victory brings down this failed project and leads us to a Europe of sovereign nation states trading together, being friends together, cooperating together, and let's get rid of the flag, the anthem, Brussels, and all that has gone wrong.
Donald Trump arriving in Scotland this morning, held a news conference, praised the Brexit decision, compared British nationalism to his own Make America Great mantra.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
We've done it. It's Independence Day. The ordinary, decent people of this country have overturned the establishment, the big banks and the big businesses. And from me, just a massive, mega thank you to all of you out there who've helped me over the years and went out today and voted to get our country back. We have done it.
But the British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path. And as such, I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction.
have stopped that.
Get this on your media channel. Stop making Nigel Farage to some kind of cartoon. He is a dangerous influence on impressionable people in this country. He doesn't represent anybody's rights. He doesn't represent anybody's future. He represents a past that this country could do without.
During the referendum, big promises were made to the people of Scotland. The promise was made of more powers for Scotland, and that the Barnett formula, the system used to allocate money to Scotland, should be maintained. The day after, David Cameron emerged from Downing Street talking of more powers for Scotland and England's MPs. The UK government set up the Smith Commission to decide which powers Scotland should get. The Scottish government made the case for substantial new powers, while the No campaign parties cut back on the promises they made before the referendum. But limited new powers were proposed, powers we want to use for the good of Scotland. Alongside these new powers, a new system of allocating money to Scotland needed to be agreed. This is called the Fiscal Framework. The Smith Agreement, signed by all political parties, outlined a core set of principles for the fiscal framework. The most important of these is the principle of no detriment. This principle means that Scotland should not suffer financially just because we gain new powers. The Treasury ignored this. From day one, they tried to use the process that was supposed to be about delivering new powers to slash Scotland's budget. And not just on a one-off basis, but forever, year after year. At the start of negotiations, they proposed a £7 billion cut. Then it was £3 billion. Then it was £2.5 billion. They were trying to use the referendum to say to Scotland, heads we win, tails you lose. Throughout the many months of negotiations, the SNP were clear. We would not sign up to a deal that shortchanges Scotland. We demanded a fair deal and the powers that were promised to Scotland. Finally, they agreed. The SNP secured a deal that ensures Scotland will not be a penny worse off and the new powers will be delivered. It is the SNP's job to stand up for Scotland, and by neutralising a Treasury cash grab on Scotland's budget, that's exactly what we've done.
Our goal is simple: a fairer country for all those born here, for those who have chosen to make this their home, and for the generations yet to come. That is why we believe in an independent Scotland. So know this, believe in this, work for this. Hope is possible. A better future is within our grasp, and together we are going to make it happen.
Well, I grew up in a Scotland where the decisions about our future are taken by the people who care most about Scotland, the people who live here.
Playing now, Dano and Discovered Creature.
Climbing on the mountainside. You know that no one else believed me. How about that? With green eyes and white stripes and salted tears, I knew that these were just its cautionary features. Keep telling myself nothing to fear. It's just an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. It's just an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. The undiscovered creature. The undiscovered creature. I never saw this one in books or heard a myth of it. Looks like it came from underwater. I thought I'd seen every life form, but there it is, an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. It's just an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. The undiscovered creature. On and on and on and on and on and on. The undiscovered creature. On and on and on and on and on and on. With green eyes and white stripes and salted tears, I knew that these were just its cautionary features. Keep telling myself nothing to fear. It's just an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. It's just an undiscovered creature coming up to meet you. He's the one that's scared. The undiscovered creature. Undiscovered creature. On and on and on and on and on. I thought I'd seen every life form, but there it is.
Next up is Color Out, Forget Yesterday.
I don't need your words, I can see it in your face. You smile when you lie, tell me everything's okay. But I won't say a word if that's what you need to say. And I know it's been hard, it's harder every day. And every time I try, you're pushing me away. I know you can't believe it, it's not easy when you're feeling numb to pain. But I can't find a place to forget yesterday. 'Cause I can tell you've been lonely, you're not the only one to say. I can see you still holding on to something you can't say. Will you take my hand, let me show you the way? We can find a place to forget yesterday. 'Cause I can tell you've been lonely, you're not the only one to say. I can see you still holding on to something you can't change. Well, how long can we go? Really, how much can we take? The pain behind your eyes is that giveaway. We can just stare when it's so clear. Just have to tell you that.
Track playing now. Daniel Kaur, Be Yourself and Love.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, here at the end of one more empty day. Tomorrow's always just the same, one more nothing on my resume. Well, I can't keep up with never-ending list of stuff to do, folks to see, time to use and things to be. Would you hurry up and slow down? You don't gotta change the world, you don't gotta be someone, just gotta be yourself and love. My ambition's running wild, here at the start of one more sleepless night. All the things I wish I'd tried, all these dreams to live before I die. Well, I can't keep up with my own striving after fantasies of epic deeds and great acclaim and living easy. Would you hurry up and slow down? You don't gotta change the world, you don't gotta be someone, just gotta be yourself and love. Just gotta be yourself and love. Just gotta be yourself and will you hurry up and slow down? You don't gotta change the world, you don't gotta be someone, just gotta be yourself and love. Would you hurry up and slow down? You ain't gonna save the world, you don't gotta be someone, just gotta be yourself and love. Just gotta be yourself and love. Just gotta be yourself and love.
You're listening to Independent TV and Radio Scotland. Channel Radio ICE.
Now you say that you're going somewhere where
Next up is Redneck Surfers Warning. Next up is Josh Woodward, Goodbye to Spring.
Put your weary soul to rest. Yeah, I will try to do my best to keep you safe inside this nest and keep your gravity from pulling you to earth. I'd like to say this gets more clear when it's more cloudy every day, but summer's gonna come and burn the stormy clouds and all the doubt away. Sleep, little girl, 'cause when you wake it's gonna be a different world. So close your eyes and say goodbye to spring. It's true, the spring is coming to an end. You're not that fragile anymore. I know what's there behind that door, and it's just waiting in the wings to pull you in. I know you think you're safe in here inside these insulated walls, but I can't hold this house together, not forever, yeah, and soon it's gonna fall. Sleep, little girl, 'cause when you wake it's gonna be a different world. Everything will change. Everything will change. This door's slamming shut. It's gonna catch you if you're ready or you're not. So close your eyes and say goodbye to spring. Slow down, 'cause winter's just around the bend. Don't make a sound, and close your eyes and say goodbye, yeah. It's gonna be a different world. Everything will change. Everything will change. This door's slamming shut. It's gonna catch you if you're ready or you're not. So close your eyes and close your eye to spring. Sleep, little girl, 'cause when you wake it's gonna be a different world. Everything will change. Everything will change. This door's slamming shut. It's gonna catch you if you're ready or you're not. So close your eyes and say goodbye to spring.
Playing now, Rudy Rogers Rapti. Now playing. Dano, Tour of the Flowers.
You bring me out from nowhere. You shine like the sun. There's a mystery in your eyes of blue, and it's your smile that tells me you're the one. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. To see all of history in a shower of every god and all their wisdom and power. I'll take you higher than a song can lift you, baby. Then take a dive off a cliff and rock formations. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. You were the girl in the fountain with honest senses. I never thought I'd see those waters in the distance. The clouds parted, baby, and I came up from underground. Yeah, I came uninvited without making a sound. And I said, shh, quiet now. And I said, shh, quiet now. I can't wait to laugh with you again. I'd walk through a flame in the night just to take you through all the fields of poppies and of grain. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. Spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers. I wanna take you on a tour of the flowers, a tour of the flowers. I wanna spend an incredible hour on a tour of the flowers.
Coolest radio station in the world, Radio Ice, from Independent TV and Radio Scotland.
Playing now. Lost European, the beginning of the end.
beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you this, my friend. Yugoslav genocide, so much anger from inside. Ethnic difference causes pain, flashing in each other's brains. Communism, it concedes to death and violence in the streets. Like the Chinese prophet said, the yellow river flowing red. Is this the end of the beginning, or the beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you this, my friend. Is this the end of the beginning, or beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you, my friend. Is this the end of the beginning, or beginning of the end? The end of the beginning, or beginning of the beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you this, my friend. Is this the end of the beginning, or beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you, my friend. The end of the beginning, or beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? I'll ask you again. Is this the end of the beginning, or the beginning of the end? Sometimes I want to take it from a little to a lot.
Next we have Josh Woodward on brevity.
And trying to tell them that I figured it out, but it's a lie, and all the stupid things I say and do and never really stop when I should never have begun. I really ought to drop it, but it's faster when you don't even have time to stop and think about the things that you were saying, cause they never really matter. But it's empty spaces in the air, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. Oh no, oh no, all the million little empty spaces in the air, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. Oh no, oh no, oh no. But I never was a fighter, and I never was a poet, and I never was a writer, though you never really know it, cause I'm full of all the knowledge that you needed to know, and I will share it if you're ready or not, because I know I heard that Jimmy was a wicked fan and Timmy's dropping out, and all the other little things that I was thinking about, like how mosquitoes have malaria and dogs have lice. I could go on for half an hour, cause I hate to leave a million little empty spaces in the air, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. Oh no, oh no, all the million little empty spaces in the air, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh. Economy of speech is not a virtue, it's a sin. I never want to tell you once what I could say again and again and again and again and again. And I know you want to tell me what you think of what I say. I promise you that I will give you time later to weigh in if you want to, if you want to.
but I forgot to tell you. I was heading out to take my puppy for a walk, and then the strangest little thing came out and ran across the sidewalk. It might have been a squirrel or a chipmunk or a prairie dog, but something about the tail wasn't right. But that's another story. Everyone just stopped and stared with blank expressions, motionless. For a second everything was silent and commotionless. I turned, I said to Fluffy, that's a cute little Saturday, but then it went scampering off, and that was better than the empty spaces in the air. Fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, oh no, all the million little empty spaces in the air. Fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, oh no, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up.
Now playing. Fatima, bring back the good old days. Next we have Dram Rum, Don't Let Me Down.
Nothing is so good, and nothing is so bad. There's always time to say goodbye. Never looking back, never looking back. It's never too late to live again.
You're listening to Independent TV and Radio Scotland, Channel Radio ICE.
Playing now. Cutworms Don't Want to Say Goodbye.
Tell me how you want me. Tell me what I can do. All your love will haunt me if I ever go from you. All alone, tired of wanting you, baby. No, I won't let our hearts go on breaking. Tell you all about it sometime. Tell you all about it sometime. Tell you all about it sometime, sometime. Tell you all about it sometime. Don't wanna have to say goodbye, goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye, goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye. Guess you were my baby. Guess you were my only friend. Guess I don't know if it's real or just pretend. All alone, tired of watching you, baby. No, I won't let our hearts go on breaking. Tell you all about it sometime. Tell you all about it sometime. Tell you all about it sometime, sometime. Tell you all about it sometime. Don't wanna have to say goodbye, goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye, goodbye. Don't wanna have to say goodbye.
Thank you.
Playing now. Bino Toivonen, Catnip.
Tell
Next we have Kevin MacLeod, Windy Old Weather.
Child's drawing God in candle wax, making finger paint hearts.
Track playing now. Dano, Picture of Clouds.
Whispering about butterflies to her mom in the morning, having breakfast with her daughter and in love with the story. Nothing is free and you can starve alone. Wed to a man and a place and a home. Willing to face things she can't sleep without sinking. And stay alive by thinking about her baby painting a picture of clouds. Oh, a picture of clouds. Oh. The little one plays violin like it was a memory inside. The tune is haunting like a dream you could recognize. Mother can hear her through the door and is proud, helping her mind escape the dead and their town. Nothing is free and you can starve alone. Wed to a man and a place and a home. Willing to face things she can't sleep without sinking. And stay alive by thinking about her baby painting a picture of clouds. Oh, a picture of clouds. Oh, it can all come together with a gentle touch. No need to roam when you have so much. Nothing's been better since she arrived. Yeah, life can happen. You do more than survive. On the porch, coloring canvas with spinning suns. The girl is as fierce like a lion, get unleashed on the world. Fall from things wicked and tattooed, now she plays cello. Mother surprises her with lemonade and jello. Nothing is free and you can starve alone. The sun's always shining. It went to a man and a place and a home. Willing to face things she can't sleep without sinking. And stay alive by thinking about her baby painting a picture of clouds. Oh, a picture of clouds. Oh, the stars are aligning, the sun's always shining in a picture of clouds.
You're listening to Independent TV and Radio Scotland. Channel Radio ICE.
Now playing Redneck Surfers, Cows and Horses.